12,000 feet, 1,000 foot drops, rocks the size of heads. Death Road, Bolivia. Let's go. The altitude here is definitely not a joke. La Paz is the highest capital city in the world at 11,975 feet. You're gonna get winded walking up a flight of stairs as I did. I thought I was in great shape going there, but guess what? Meds you can take, and of course coca leaves do help. Flying in, you're probably gonna arrive at El Alto International Airport. It's actually the highest international airport of the world at 13,313 feet. It's the 7th highest commercial airport in the world. Your visa is not required for 30 days if you're a Canadian citizen, so there's one thing to help with. One of the fun things to do in South America, of course, is Death Road in Bolivia, El Camino de la Muerto, or as it's known locally, the North Youngest Road. It is one of the best spots to mountain bike you'll ever go. It's actually pretty safe. Most people can go on it. I used Gravity Bolivia. It was $130, and they offer one of the best experiences you're ever going to see there. First, you're going to meet up in La Paz at the Gravity Bolivia headquarters. You're there, you get on the bus, and you head out. When you get to the locations, you get on the nice bikes, and they are some really, really nice bikes. Like, they didn't spare any expense on them. Then you start off with a shot. It's basically pure alcohol. You take a little sip, you pour some on the tire. It's an offering to the Inca gods, just for safety along your trip. It's a nice little shot early in the morning, too. Once you're familiar with your bikes, then you get on them. The first bit is actually a highway bit. It's pretty easy, just nice familiar riding, just to get used to your bikes. And that's where I saw my first accident. We were coming up on one of the turns, and there was another group ahead of us from a different company. There was one kid that was laid over by the guardrail. He looked in pretty bad pain. But of course, we were told just to carry on, helps on its way. Later that night, actually, at my hostel, saw a guy walking in, looked a little beat up. I asked him, was that you this morning? He said, yep, it was. Saw his back. He had severe road rash on his back and his butt and his legs. Did not look too fun. But thankfully, he did survive, and he's got one hell of a story to go with it. But it's always a caution, just be careful what you're doing. It was just wet pavement at that time. Not even any rocks, no big drops yet. So he got really, really lucky. One recommendation I would have for visiting La Paz is, of course, give yourself a day or two just to acclimatize to the actual altitude. It's pretty intense. If you don't take any medication, or if you're not used to it, it's going to really hit you in the ass hard. A lot of people were in their beds, just sitting there, just couldn't deal with it. You just got to give yourself time. It is quite an extreme to go from even sea level to 13,000 feet. You will feel it pretty quickly. There's no air up there. One thing different about Death Road is once you get on it, it's left-hand traffic. It's one of the few spots in North America where the rules of the road change. Why? Because when you're driving the vehicle and you're on the edge of the cliff, you have to be able to look over and see where the edge of the cliff is. Yeah, it's wild. And when you're on a bike, guess what? If you're headed a vehicle, you have to go on the left-hand side. So that got pretty nervous for us. Thankfully, we never had to encounter that, but there were some times when you had to pass other bikers and you had to go on the left side. And that was a little scary. Because when you're past them, you have to yell and tell them you're passing, and you have to make sure they don't swerve left into you, where there's most likely not a guardrail. The road was created in 1930. It was a primary trade route for Bolivia to Brazil. In 2006, there was a new road built, so thankfully they don't have to use it as much. But a lot of people still died in this road. Average was 209 accidents a year and 96 deaths. In mountain biking history, they started it in 1998, and there was 18 deaths so far. And yes, it does happen. It can be very scary, but thankfully the vehicle traffic is limited, so mountain bikers have a lot of right of way, so it's not as scary anymore. Now, traveling on Death Road can be pretty scary. It is 64 kilometers path you got a bike on. Mostly downhill. There's a little bit of uphill, but they take the bus for that just so you're not exhausted and you can actually make it up it. Once you get onto the actual Death Road, it is quite intimidating though. One lane usually, no lines, just all rocks, and usually some of the rocks they call baby heads because, well, they're the size of baby heads. And you have to avoid them and try not to stare over the cliff and fall off the cliff and brake in time and avoid the water and other bikers. It's a little bit of a handful, but our group was full of Canadians and Aussies. It was really good and had a great time. It's one of those memories I'll live forever. During the whole ride too, you'll experience a loss of 11,800 feet of altitude. That's quite a bit. There's a lot of downhill sections, and a lot of times you're just speeding up just to speed up and take it faster and faster and faster and have more fun. And then there's one spot where they want us to stop and take an individual picture. Of course, you stand right next to cliff edge with no guardrail. So I was standing there and I took my turn and I get there, okay, and the guy says, jump. So I did. And as you can see from the picture, I was pretty close. Of course, there's some gas from everyone there, But I sort of laughed it off, not realizing how close I was to death there. And then I looked back and I'm like, ooh, that was actually really close. If the rocks had shifted a little, I might have not made it. Of course, one thing you're gonna see is a lot of crosses and a lot of memorials. Actually, there's one big one. It was started in 1983 when a bus went over, killing more than 100 passengers. And there's lots of videos out there of this different stuff happening out there. It's pretty wild. And when you're on it, you realize it. It's the drops are just insane. They're 1,000-foot drops, and there's, like I said, very little guardrails, very little stoppages. So if you're on that edge and it starts tipping, it's not going to be good. Of course, the one spot that really made it famous, and the reason why I want to do it, because I saw Top Gear do it. Top Gear was on their season 14, episode 6 of the Bolivia special. And you actually saw some of the spots, or the one famous spot where Jeremy Clarkson had to sit on the edge and actually had another vehicle go by and try not to fall over. And yes, the drop there was very, very deep. Like, it was not something that would have been survivable. And it was really fun. I really wanted to go there after seeing that episode, and especially after I found out you could actually mountain bike on it. Like, yeah, that's right up my alley, risk-taking and adrenaline junkie-wise. Of course, Gravity Bolivia did give you everything you needed to do it. You got a helmet and a jacket and pants if you want to wear them. Of course, I'm crazy Canadian, so I decided to wear shorts, which gave me a lot of bug bites in the end and really actually sucked. They also give you this, which they actually said really watch out when you're running around town, because some people have used it for robberies. Of course, they really can't identify anyone because a lot of people do this trip, but you do get this fancy thing. Of course, one thing you'll have to watch out when you're on death row is just other bikers. We had that a couple times when we're just biking ahead, and all of a sudden there was a tight spot where it narrowed into one bike width. And of course, the guy in front of us decided to slow down. I hit my brakes and I almost went head over. Thankfully, the guy moved a little quicker and I was able to get through. But that's one big thing you had to really worry about there is just other bikers, because some people were out there lollygagging. Oh, look at the scenes, look at this, look at that. And it's like, hey, to your left, there's a massive drop. Like, it's no BS here. You got to pay attention somewhat. I know everyone wants to like look around and see what's going on, but like, still, you got to pay attention. Keep up with the pace too. Of course, if you actually go to La Paz, one other cool thing to see would be Tiwanaku and Pumapunku. They're about 70 kilometers from La Paz. You'll see the Gate of the Sun and then the Pumapunku, which has many different varied blocks in there, including the H blocks and some other things in there. And if you watch the old Ancient Aliens show, you realize that a lot of stuff was really hard to make, and they really don't know what it was for. Pumapunku is one of the sites I really wanted to visit too. It's got the H blocks, it's got different stone cuts in it, and really weird things around there that you see a lot in the show. There just doesn't make sense for anything made back in those days. So that was my experience in Death Row Bolivia. It was a very fun time. I recommend anyone going down there. It's one of those thrills you're never going to get in any other spot in the world. After that, I took the bus and I went to Copacabana, which is right on the edge of Lake Titicaca. At 12,507 feet, Lake Titicaca, yes, that is its name, is the highest navigable lake in the world. From there, I went to Machu Picchu and some other adventures. But La Paz was a very fun city while I was there. Death Road was incredible. It was definitely one of the highlights of the trips. And I really think anyone who's down there should give it a try. It's a really fun time. Till we see you next time. Have a good day.